So we are going to begin our compression pot, and I just want to go over some things and our first steps on how to get started. Okay, so the first thing is you are going to get 2.5 pounds of clay. I do have scales in there, but it's about the size of a softball or a grapefruit. Just, you can eyeball it too. If it's a little bit over or under, that's okay. But it should kind of fit in be a large piece that fits in your hand. The first thing you want to do, and what compression is getting all the air bubbles out of the clay and squeezing it together to make sure that it's very compact. So wedging is a great way to actually start compressing the clay. So I just want to talk a little bit more about wedging. When you're doing that, trying to get it in, well, first of all, if it's in separate pieces or like looks kind of separated, just kind of hit the clay all together so that you can get, that nice large chunk as one. Once you have that wedging, you're going to hold your hands on two sides, and basically you're going to very slowly push the clay and kind of turn it at the same time. So I'm kind of squeezing in, I'm rolling it, and then I'm grabbing it back. Every time it comes back towards me, a little bit of clay is being shifted underneath. Okay, so what you want is that it's creating a right there. I have, excuse me, I have already done the wedging for this piece, so I'm not going to do it for too long, but it's always a good idea to practice. Another thing that you can do once you have stopped wedging is just kind of roll that clay at the bottom into the rest of the solid chunk, and then you can hit it. Okay, so I want to show you my sketch, and I drew a sketch that is fairly organic, so you can make your piece geometric or organic, doesn't really matter. With this process, you can do either. But this is mine. I don't have all the details of the negative spaces. So the first thing I want to do in terms of my sketch is my piece is taller than it is wide. So I want my chunk of clay to do that very same thing. So I can hit it on the table. I can also just kind of hit it with my hand to get that tall vertical lump of clay. Okay, so I have that. I want to look at my sketch again. Okay, so it is widest kind of like a fourth of the way up from the base, and then it kind of narrows here, and then it kind of narrows down, but it's very round in the center. Okay, so to get something like that, you don't want to have hard edges, so if you hit it on the table, it's going to have hard edges. If you're making something geometric, that's great. It's something you want to actually do, is use the table to your advantage to make hard planes and edges. So I'm just going to like really quickly get rid of those so it's very oval 3D shape or form. Okay, so the bottom of it I need to be narrow. This middle section I want to be thick. So I am going to take my hand and shift that clay up just by like literally hitting it. Okay, so now all clay projects always start out crude, even my work. And as you're working on it, you get it closer and closer to your desired form, shape, and what you want. So it's going to always start out that generic form. Okay, so I've got it narrow at the bottom. It's getting fairly wide right here. It's like my widest point. I'm just going to do it a tiny bit more. Okay, so kind of got that bottom part. Now I need to work on the top. And what you can see happening is kind of some divots that I don't want there, So I'm going to actually use my hands and fingers to compress the clay in that area. And, you know, at the same time I'm doing this, it's not only smoothing it out, but it's getting that gradual transition that my sketch has. So I want this definitely to be more pointed. So I'm going to take my hand, and you can see I'm just kind of squeezing it. And we did this to some degree with our pinch pots when we were trying to shape the pinch pots. I don't want to create a little pocket there, so I'm just kind of smoothing that over with my hands again. Okay, so now you can see I am getting closer. I am going to use my hand to pull on the clay to get that smoothness and again that gradual transition. I want to show you a way, I'm kind of doing it right now, but I also want to show you a way of using water to your advantage in terms of like shaping a very organic shape. So I have a bucket of water here. Make sure you can see. Since I want this to be more narrow, I am going to add water to it, and I'm going to kind of squeeze it a little bit to lengthen it. I want to express to you how important it is that you're not adding too much water, because once you're done with forming your shape, you actually have to let it dry out a bit, and the next step is to hollow your piece, okay? So I'm going to take just a little bit of water, and I am going to squeeze the surface. And this is actually a technique we use for my upper level classes to make handles for projects. So you can see I'm starting to curve it as I'm using the water and just really kind of pushing on the whole surface to, again, compress it. So if you were making a piece that had some extra things on it, some appendages that were coming off of it or additives, you would do that after you get that overall shape. So give me one moment. I want to show you what I'm talking about with an example piece. Okay, so this shape is actually very similar to mine. It just has a lot of interesting additive pieces. So once I have my overall shape, you're not gonna hollow it next. You do your additive work. You don't need to necessarily do subtractive. Since my foot is pretty well integrated into the form, I can actually start forming those right on the pot just by like pinching. So I can start to think, okay, I want a foot there, or a little, and I want another little piece there, and I want another little piece coming out from this section. So now that I've kind of figured out where I want them placed, I can start actually pushing and pulling on those. Some of you will not do this step at all because you're going to just be slipping and scoring onto the foot or on the foot. And that doesn't have to be done at this process, but it can be. If your legs are skinny and kind of fragile, you would want to hollow it out before you added your feet, okay? So you really have to think about your form and getting that desired shape. So I'm going to continue to work on this and pull these out so that I can get a really nice 3 prongs at the bottom so that eventually they will be my foot. You can do something highly realistic. This is one I made either last year or 2 years ago. But I sculpted it just like our rattles, except for that it was completely solid as I was sculpting it. Once I had all the facial features and additive parts there, Then I went from this space and hollowed out the whole form. So it really just depends. If you are doing something geometric, I do have paddles, but the table will also work as a paddle unless you're doing like angles that kind of like jet in and jet out. So you can use the table, like I said, to your advantage just by hitting it to get a really nice edge. You can use this paddle to kind of do the same thing. All right. So I only have like 7 paddles. So like not everybody is going to be able to use this at one time, obviously. But just like my form that I made, it takes some time to get it into the shape, your desired shape. It always starts out crude and gets closer and closer as you are, as your clay is drying and as you continue to work on it. Okay, so that's all I have for you. Look forward to seeing your sketches and what you guys are gonna come up with. Thanks for watching.